Hey, travel friends. Today we're going to be talking about Florence's most famous cathedral known as the Duomo.
And the three biggest mistakes that tourists make when visiting the Duomo.
So let's get started. What's the first one?
So the first one is, I would say this is for budgeted travelers, which we sort of are. And you're thinking, oh, it's free to go into the Duomo, but it costs money, I think about 18 euros or so, to climb up the dome. So why don't I just get in line, go into the church for free, and then look up and boom. Don't do that. It's funny because the Duomo, the outside is gorgeous, right? It's absolutely stunning. And you expect the inside to be equally stunning, but it's not. If you've been to Europe and you've been in a good number of cathedrals or churches, right? A lot of them are very ornate, especially compared to the ones that we have in the US. And then you're like, oh, the Duomo, it's like super famous. The outside's gorgeous. You expect the inside to be impressive, and it's impressively unimpressive. Waiting in line to go in, seeing a very unimpressive church, and skipping the climb up to the dome, I think that's a huge mistake.
I wouldn't say it's an unimpressive church. It's a
It's very
lot
simple.
simple. I think simple because it's still impressive. It's just very simple compared to what you might be used to when going into European Catholic churches. So the first biggest mistake is not climbing.
Right.
Okay. Now, the second mistake is if you do want to climb, it's thinking that you can just pop in and climb.
Right.
You can't because you have to go within certain windows of time. It is very narrow, winding. When you get to the top of the dome, there's only so much space up there. So they limit it to a certain amount of people within each, I think it's a 1 hour window.
And this really makes sense, right? Like at the time that it was built, they were just focused on getting it built and it not collapsing. It wasn't built to withstand tourism.
So the best part of climbing the dome is actually seeing the interior ceiling or roof of the dome, and that has the Last Judgment painted on it. It's a whole experience. So you're not only climbing up to just get a great view of the Last Judgment, you then keep climbing to where then you are literally on top of the dome. And that is for a great view of Florence. It's a 360 view.
And even if you're not into views, and generally I would say I'm okay about views, people don't make these kinds of domes anymore. And there's also not that many sorts of these dome churches in existence, even in Europe. So it's a great opportunity to experience something very new and unique. Totally worthwhile. And yes, don't think that you can just walk to the church and book a slot to climb up, because usually these slots they fill up days in advance.
Days in
Right.
advance.
And especially if you're visiting during tourist season, you should book it sooner than later. And they will give you a date, and they will also give you a time slot that I think it's like you have to show up within like 20, 20-minute or something window.
Okay. The third mistake is not being prepared for this climb. Climb it is. It is a climb. It's 463 steps. It's narrow corridors. They're really tight and windy, so if you deal with like claustrophobia, be aware. So comfy shoes is a must. You do have to still dress appropriately. It is a Catholic church, but it can get very warm.
You shouldn't be like it's a fitness issue, right? You don't need to like be able to run a marathon
You can
or
pause.
yes. So it shouldn't be a fitness thing for a majority of people. I think it's more of a mental preparation than a physical one. Like you should be prepared that you might be very close to people in front of you or in back of you as you're climbing these stairs. The walls are going to be generally very close to you, and
Spiral. It's a tight spiral on certain parts of it.
and it's if you want to go faster or slow down or regret going up, it's very hard to back out once you're out. There's very few alternative exits.
Yeah, there's no lift to get up and up and back.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so I think that wraps up the three most common mistakes tourists make when visiting the Duomo in Florence, Italy. Don't make them. Okay.
Happy travels.
Happy travels.